Well, good morning.
Morning.
I'm Eric Tibbetts, and I have the pleasure of being the president of your volunteer board of directors for this calendar year, for this fiscal year. Our year actually ends tomorrow. We'll start a new fiscal year, the date of our annual meeting. Some people call it a homeowners meeting, but that's our terminology, is the annual meeting. And so what we are required by law to do, but we think is a good idea anyway, is to have a session once a year for new members, just to answer any questions you might have about our association, about how to get things done, how things work, why things don't work. We have, of course, Gary, who makes personal contact as part of our member organization here to get everybody started and hopefully answer all of the immediate questions like, how do I get my TV to work? Why don't I have internet?
Gary, right?
Yeah, it's Gary. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
But what we'll try and do is cover a couple of topics just real quickly. We'll try and finish with our comments no later than 8:30, hopefully sooner than that. Have some time for questions, although I encourage you to jump in if you do have questions. And then we'll be sure and wrap up in about 9:45, so we get because we got the other meeting starting at 10. And maybe just a word of explanation about that. If you have a board, we meet multiple times a year, typically 5 times a year. All board meetings are open to the public, but to owners. We also have an occasional special meeting. Sometimes those are in person here. Sometimes those are on GoToMeeting. Those again are all open to ownership members, and if you have questions about how to participate in those, we can certainly address those. Let me then take a moment, let each of us who are here introduce themselves.
Scott Young, I'm at Houston, Texas, Vice President of the volunteer boards. Eric alluded to. I guess I've been involved, been an owner here since 2011, I believe. Been involved either on the board or on committees dating back to about 2012 or 13. And we've got a great community. I think you guys will enjoy being here. We hope you participate in the meetings. It's important that we hear from everybody. Again, we're just volunteers, right? We're kind of trying to drive the ship. But at the end of the day, the feedback that we get from the owners is most important.
Hi, good morning. I'm Kathleen Puglis. There are two versions.
Excuse me 1 second. Can I just point out that everybody's facing that way, talking that way. The microphones are back here, so for the people who are online, you might want to.
Is there any chance we can extend that?
Other people online already?
Yeah, there's people online.
Okay. Maybe we just bring out our pom-poms for a minute. So good morning, everyone. I'm Kathleen Puglis. You'll hear two versions. You'll hear the Italian version, which is Puglisi, or the American version, which is Puglis. I answer to anything. I have 6 brothers and sisters, so I got called with different names. So, I am probably one of the newer members on the board. I've been on the board for about 6 months. I've been in the Tamarron area for about 3 years now. We have a unit over in Pinecone and live in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So I work mostly with the restaurant. I did the survey with our restaurant, the Yellow Carrot. So that is my position, is to help, streamline things there. If there's dissatisfaction with the restaurant, then I'm happy to go to the owner of the restaurant and have those discussions. And we did have a meeting with her last week, which went very well. So she's done some changes to the menu. But it's glad to have you all here this morning.
Good morning and welcome. I'm Ron McLennan, also from Houston. I've also moved here. I guess we moved in 2011, along with some other people about that same time. And hopefully you'll enjoy living here and coming here. And I think, as several people have already mentioned, we've got a good board. We have a very good community. I'm over rules and regulations, so unfortunately we have to have those every now and then. Refer back to those. But as part of being a community and living together and being in close proximity, obviously we need to have procedures and that type of thing. So encourage you to go over that information. All of our documents and rules, regulations, and other guidelines are all online, so you can pull those up at any point in time and read them. They're very exciting things to read, so they want to get the family around Saturday night and go over the rules, regulations. But if you got questions or anything on any of these documents, certainly any of us here can answer those. So again, I welcome you and glad you're here.
Yeah, Ron brings up a good point. I don't know if you're going to address this or not, but if you guys aren't aware, Gary manages a website. It's TamarronHOA.com.
We're going to do that at
You're gonna do
8:30 or 9:30. Yeah, we're going to have Gary just pop it up.
Shut up, Scott.
Yeah, no, it's a great idea. Just don't take our precious time. Okay, young man.
I'm Rick Hughes. I also live in High Point. We've met.
I thought I
But-
saw that guy.
Yeah, bought in 2012. So we've been here 6 years. Right now,
Come on,
I'm
John.
taking care of the Architectural Review Committee. And so if you're wanting to make any substantial changes, anything that would involve the exterior, then there's some guidelines that we have for that. And, you know, it's generally not a big issue, but we want to keep the exterior consistent and kind of true to the development. So anything like that, I'm that. And obviously, I see you every day, so if you guys have questions, you know, feel free.
So now you're gonna hide, aren't you?
No. You know, you know where I'll be at 4 o'clock.
Yeah. And joining us since we started the introductions, this grizzled gentleman tonight, John is one of our officers, a former board president, and got a long history here. So could you do a brief intro?
I have a long history and a short future. I'm the secretary of the board, John Niebling. And as Eric said, I at one point was the president of the board, served on the board for 2 terms, and then I stayed on after my term ended and have been the note taker and publisher of minutes, etc. And but I am ready to ride off into the sunset. Mr. McLennan is going to take over the secretarial duties. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah, be careful, he's already written in the minutes somewhere. You just don't know it. Okay. We have, for the record, we have a couple of folks here with us. We have how many online, Gary?
There's 4 online.
Okay. And just so everybody is aware, we are recording this session. I don't know what we'll do with it, but just, you know, so everybody knows in advance that it's being recorded. So let me just kind of start down a list of things maybe we can talk about very quickly. This property was established, actually the first plats were in 1974. This was developed by a gentleman and his brother, Stan Wadsworth and his brother. They developed 2 properties, one here, one just outside of Tampa in Florida. They were very similar in concept. It's kind of a resort destination property with a signature golf course attached to it. That was quite unusual in those days. They were both pretty successful, and several of our early owners actually owned properties in both locations. They have since gone their own separate way. The location in Florida is now actually the site for a PGA golf event in the fall, the Valspar Open, if anybody knows or cares. But they've expanded. Actually, I think they've got 3 golf courses there now. It's quite a golfing resort. But we've evolved over the years. As I say, early on, it was more of a destination. Very few people spent much time here. You would spend 2 weeks, and you would then have your property rented out most of the year. In those days, you could rent your property for probably 60% of the nights of the year. You actually could make a tiny bit of money on a rental proposition. Today, we're a much more diverse and a much more typical kind of community. We've got a handful, 25, 30 people who live here year-round, maybe a few more than that. We have probably that many full-time renters who live here full-time. We have an active short-term rental program, and we have still, I think, the majority of folks who look at this property as their second home, and they spend some amount of time here. We'll talk a little bit more about rental program later, but that's just we look just like America at this point. We've got people who live here full-time who are in retirement. We've got people who work from their homes, from their condos, and run a business here. It's pretty much a microcosm of America today. I can't think. Well, governing docs. John, you never did raise your hand, but you pointed it out. You want to tell us a little bit now, and Gary will put up the webpage in just a minute,
Oh, okay.
just to show people where they're located. So if you could just give us a
Sure.
brief summary of the key ones.
Yeah. Well, state of Colorado has a nonprofit corporation act that covers all sorts of nonprofits. And of course, homeowners associations are private nonprofit organizations. And then in 2006, the Colorado legislature felt the need to have a specific law for HOAs called the Colorado Common Interest Ownership Act, fondly referred to as Kiowa. And it really specifically tells how HOAs should be run or need to be run in the state. When this was incorporated, that was prior to Kiowa, but when this property became, as Eric described it, it had its sets of declarations and covenants. Again, kind of the shorthand is the DCCRs, and they govern this particular property. And then under those, there are such things as bylaws, policies, rules and regulations, etc. So those are and advise you to be familiar with them. They're not a lot of fun to read, but they do tell you exactly how things have to be done.
And the DCCRs were
In the
ownership
09.
vote.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah. So it's not something the board does. The community
That's right.
looks
They
at
were
the
revised
document
in 09.
by a significant 240 something to 6 or whatever. But, yeah. So we treat those as pretty our bright yellow line. That's because our ownership at that point in time felt those sets of rules and regulations and principles and policies were important. That's what we tend to follow, and that's really one of the key duties of any board member. Okay, what else was on that? Yep.
Open the questions?
Sure, yeah.
But now, we've been associated with a lot of different boards, and unfortunately, all boards don't run the same, and we find that out sometimes the hard way.
State laws are different. I mean, I live in Florida, so I can tell you.
Right. Yeah, we lived 14 years in Florida, so yeah, this is quite different. But I guess one of my questions is, now, when the board has an executive meeting, that's for board members only, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now, if there's a proposal made by the executive committee, right, let's see, hypothetically, you're going to change the windows, okay? Now, do you bring that to the membership, or do you just say the board has voted this in and that's what we're going to do?
John, you want to respond to that, or I can go ahead?
Well, let me try, and if I get it wrong, you can correct me. I think in general, executive sessions. You started with executive sessions,
Right,
so let's
right,
talk about that real quick.
Right, because that seems like in our past where the problem starts sometimes, because the executive board or the HOA board, they'll do things, but they don't put it out to the membership. And the membership's sitting there and going, whoa, what's going on?
That really shouldn't happen.
Well, exactly. Well, we just had it happen to us this week. So I get another HOA.
It won't happen in Colorado.
No.
By law.
They're very narrow. There are very limited number of things that the board can discuss in executive session.
Right.
Personnel matters, legal issues, etc. So things that affect the general membership, ownership in each of the complexes, and certainly in the entire complex, are discussed in open session always, and the board can take no action affecting owners without publicly putting it out there to owners, and owners have a right to comment on any matter before the board where a vote is to be taken, and there's a protocol for that.
Right. Okay, so hypothetically speaking,
Yes.
Say that the board has an executive board meeting and they decide that they're going to make anyone who comes in here have, in order to qualify to be here, they have to have a certain credit score, okay? Or they have to have a certain financial statement in order to be able to come in here. Now, is anything in the thing like that now?
Yeah.
No, because we just ran into it.
Yeah. Let me just comment real quickly on a word you used,
Right.
and that was the word, if the board in executive session
Right.
decided to do something, if the board decided to do it in executive session, it has broken the law.
Yeah, see, now our other home was in Arizona. And I mean, we just ran into this, guys. I mean,
Yeah.
we lost a sale on our home
Yeah.
because of this. They changed the rules, but they didn't put it out there to everybody.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Not
we're
here.
sitting there and we're going, so we get a call from our realtor going, hey, they just changed the rules back in June. I go, how is that possible?
Well, such a thing as that, under our rules,
Right.
would have to be announced before an action like that could be taken.
Right.
50 days, no more than 50 days prior to the vote, and no less than 10 days prior to the vote. So there's a 40-day window that all owners have to be notified
Right.
officially that this action is being considered at this meeting
Right.
and will be voted upon at that meeting. It can't happen without you knowing it.
Exactly. And that was our contention. That why, how could you do this?
Exactly.
But anyway,
Yeah.
so what you're telling me is that I'm not going to wake up one morning and the parking lot's going to be pink, right? And I just
Well,
brought Gary, or maybe he likes pink. I don't know.
I can't promise you that. If you don't read your emails, it could happen.
Well,
But you will get notification. Whether what you do with it, I can't decide.
there you go.
And I don't want to take up all the time, but
No.
okay. But
Any question you have, feel
I
free.
mean, we've moved around a lot. We've been in a lot of different circumstances, blah, blah, blah. As far as the restaurant thing, okay, we did the survey. And what was the main purpose? Now, we were in the restaurant business for 22 years, okay? We owned 7 restaurants. So when we got the survey, I'm going, have we eaten at the Yellow Carrot? Yes. Our opinion, so-so. But what was the main reason for it? Are you contemplating to asking another restaurant to come in, or how's that gonna?
No, originally before the Yellow Carrot opened, there
Right.
was a survey that went out to the owners, and this was before my time.
Right.
You know, wanting to know.
And you're Italian, right?
My husband is.
Oh, okay. All right, good.
I could be one if you
All
want.
right.
So there had been a pre-survey. So this was more of a follow-up, and we had heard some complaints from, owners that they weren't satisfied. And in my professional background, it's, if there's a complaint about something, we truly should ask people what is the complaint, and then to be fair to the owner or whoever's running a business, to go back to them to provide them with the feedback. So that was the true purpose. We had heard discussions among, members, even visitors that had come into town, the hours, there's not a
Right.
children's menu. It was that type of thing. So really it was more for our own benefit and to take that helpful information, whether Sari felt like it was helpful or not, I do believe so. So we took that information back to her, just to give her that feedback of what people were looking for.
It might be helpful also to give you maybe a little background. We've had several iterations of restaurants here.
You've had several restaurants here?
Yeah, several iterations over the years.
Yeah.
We lost a restaurant probably 3 years ago, give or take.
Good ones.
And
Yeah.
Cuckoos. And didn't have a restaurant for quite some time. And I would guess when we did this second survey, we were probably, a year into having Sari here at Yellow Carrot. So we'd kind of had a chance to go back and revisit what the first year looked like and talk to owners and try to get an update. And Sari's a caterer, and that's her primary line of business. We asked her to come up here, or we interviewed her about opening the restaurant here. And we, again, to her point, we felt like it was time to get some feedback because we were hearing from owners.
So what was the general consensus of the survey? Was it, once you approached the owner, what I'm sure, negative and positive feedback, was she receptive to it, or?
She was. Out of all the owners, there were 86 responses to the survey. There was some very positive feedback, with regard to this is the best restaurant I've ever been to very negative feedback to where this is the worst that I've ever been to. So to try to provide that information to Sari, to people, you have to present it in a way to where, she's not going to become very defensive, which in some parts she did. Gary and I met with her.
Okay.
She got a little defensive, but I think the more she thought through it and what we were trying to help her understand is these are what people are looking for. A lot of people aren't looking at she's an executive chef, and
Right.
like, Scott said, she's a caterer, so she's very artistic. So I approached it as to, not all people are looking for that. Not all people appreciate your talent.
Right.
There's a lot that are looking for simple. So I tried to use those types of words, and by the end, she was very receptive.
So did you resolve the fact about how many days you're going to be open? See, that's one of the things. So we love the Mine Shaft, and we think that's a great restaurant. Coming from 22 years of experience, we really enjoy it there. But it seems like we've had several guests here, and we'll say, well, maybe we'll try the Yellow Carrot, but it seems like that their days they're not open very much. So was that resolved, or?
Well, in her agreement, she had established days that she would be open.
Mhm.
So that was agreed upon. Now, she did change her days 1 or 2 times, I believe. In her defense, what she's telling us is that when she is open, sometimes there's no one that comes into the restaurant.
I know. Yeah, we were there, and there was no one there.
Yeah, so she said, it's difficult to, you've got to bring people up the mountain. She said it's been hard for her to try to get people to stay committed to being up here on the mountain.
Mhm.
And then she also said that, to pay her servers, it cost her X amount of dollars. We'd even talked about maybe her having some breakfast items, and she went into explanation as to she would love to do that.
That's tough. As far
However,
as money.
then she would go into how
Yeah.
much it would cost her, and would that even be a break even. So with the survey and, giving the results, good and bad, the feedback, she agreed that she would definitely look at catering to kids, because I've been in the restaurant when there's kids in there, and you see the kids with their heads on the table because there's nothing there for them to
exactly.
do. There's not even a simple hot dog for them to have. But she agreed to look at that. She agreed to make her menu a little bit more simple.
Mhm.
So I don't know if you've been there within the last couple of weeks, but she did.
We were going to go one night, and it was closed.
Okay,
right?
so
Yeah.
she did make it more simple, very few selections. Trivia night was last night. We had a pretty good outcome. A lot of people were ordering food. There was good comments with the food. Eric and John had recently been and were very, satisfied, with the service. The service last night was incredible. The kids were wonderful.
Yeah.
And the other point that I was going to make was her request to us is she can do all these things and she can change these things to try to better satisfy the owners. But we also gave her a number of, there's 75 people that are typically on site that are owner residents,
Right.
typically throughout the year. And her request back is if they can come just one time a week, because she needs support as well. And
Oh,
keep the
absolutely.
restaurant open.
Yeah.
And you would certainly
Yeah.
understand that.
Well, we own the restaurant on a resort, so we understand everything that you just said. Like the breakfast thing, it's a loser.
Yeah.
You're not going to make any money. You're not going to sell ham and eggs for $7.95 and make any money. So it's tough on the owner. Okay, now there's one thing, and I think I put it in a survey when we answered it. But as a previous owner and being on a resort or what have you, is there any reason that the menus for both restaurants are not in the rooms?
I can't answer
I
that.
mean, if she wants, she's got a good point.
Right.
She wants, for people to support her. Say, for an example, we rent our unit out, okay, and I'm sure a lot of other people rent it out. But, when people get there, if you have a menu in there for the Mine Shaft and the Yellow Carrot, they have choices, okay? And a lot of people come and they leave and they say, well, we didn't even realize there was a restaurant on here.
Yeah, I think
So
it's
is
one
there
of the
a reason
front
for
desks,
that?
but I don't, it's probably just an oversight.
That's what
Yeah.
I was
I think
raising
it's one of the
my
front.
But
hand, so you knew I wasn't asleep.
but
I'm very active.
but you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that would help the Yellow Carrot get those people, especially the people that come. Now, we had company here, and they said, well, is there a restaurant on property? And I said, well, yeah, there's 2 of them. And they go, well, we don't have a menu. And so they had to physically get in their car and go down and pick up a menu. And I think it would be at the expense, just a suggestion, at the expense of the restaurant owner in order to print those and get them in the rooms. And I think the Yellow Carrot would do much, much better here. Okay. And the Mine Shaft, I think they're building, as far as I can see, since we've been here, they've got a pretty good reputation. You know, and their presentation is good, their food is good. That's our opinion, but you know.
Yeah, and she's got her own opinions
Right.
as well, because
But-
she's looking at
yeah.
her.
But that would be my suggestion in
and I
order to
agree.
help them. If you guys, I mean, if you want to, I don't know how you move that along, or
Right.
you talk to the owners, or
Right.
I think
whatever.
another thing to maybe be aware of is when we first talked to Sari, we didn't have the mine shaft yet. We didn't know what their hours were going to be. We didn't know if they were going to be open over the winter.
Terry's the owner of the Yellow Carrot?
Sari.
Sari.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, Sari.
So, you know, as an abundance of caution, we looked at it and said, do we really want to put all our eggs in that basket when we haven't seen it yet? We don't know what it's going to be. We don't know how big it's going to be. We don't know how many tables they're going to
Right.
have. We don't know when they're going to be open. So
So that's just a suggestion. I don't know,
Sure.
guys.
Well,
You
no,
know.
let me
and
ask
it-
you a question, though.
Yeah.
If you said you were on a resort.
Oh, yeah.
One of the things, and believe me, everybody up here will acknowledge that the hours will frustrate you because we have times, spring break,
Right.
Thanksgiving.
Well,
Christmas.
we lived through that in Florida too.
Right.
Same thing.
So one of the comments I think I put in the survey was, you know, have you ever seen it where you base it on occupancy, advanced occupancy numbers?
You do.
Is that how you did it?
You do.
Yeah.
Because if the front desk is working with the restaurant owners, okay, they gave us a report every week, okay, and they told us exactly what the occupancy was going to be, and then the restaurant owners can order food that way. They can order or the labor costs. They can control their labor costs that way. But that to me, it worked very well. Every single Monday morning, we would get a report from the front desk, and they would tell us what the occupancy is going to be for that week. And we were able to, you know, order our food that way, our labor, everything. And it's a way the restaurant, because if you get a good restaurant, I mean, people just come. You know, they just love it, and that's the way I would do it.
And I don't know,
Have
was
an
she getting that,
occupancy.
you know? When you talked about
She
the point?
assured us that she was getting that
She was
information.
Oh, yeah.
getting that.
She was checking it.
It's
very
on the board
frequently.
there within 100 feet of her staff,
Yeah.
so.
And she said
Yeah.
that she did that. And I do think, you know, her advertising, you know, we have the one sign coming up the highway, but I was in town the other day and a lady asked me, you know, where was I from? Why was I here?
Yeah.
And she said, do they have a restaurant up there?
Yeah,
and
see?
I said, yeah. I said, the Yellow Carrot. She goes, are you kidding me? The Yellow Carrot's up there? And I
Yeah,
said, yeah, they've
see?
been there for almost 2 years.
Because I understand the Yellow Carrot's got quite a good reputation in Durango, and they just opened up a new restaurant down there. But you know, if as a community, if you want to support them, I think those are two things that you could do to really support the Yellow Carrot restaurant and the Mine Shaft. Because if you got the menu there, people don't want to be driving 17 miles down this mountain, and they don't necessarily want to go up to like the Sal's here at this other place. I've heard some good things about them, some bad things, you know, that type of thing. And another thing you want to do is once you get the camped up audience on the resort, you want to keep them here. I mean, it benefits all of us.
Yeah.
So, and that was one of the things when we were down in Florida, that was one of the key things. Say, you know, you want to keep as many people on property as possible.
Once they leave, they're gone.
Exactly.
You gotta get back.
And if you give them two choices, one day they're going to go to Yellow Carrot, the other day they're going to go to the Mine Shaft. And that helps all of us.
And they're
You
still
know.
here.
Yeah.
Good feedback.
Captive audience, that's what it's called, really.
Yeah.
And that's what I used to look at all the time. I would go, whoa, we got 300 guests this week. How am I going to keep those guests on property? You know, so, and that's what, you know, that's how we did it. Okay.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Appreciate that.
I got a twofer.
Okay. Okay. And Gary, as well, do we have any questions online?
Not yet.
Okay.
Well,
We'll give them a heads up that we're giving them a chance for questions in just a minute. Go ahead.
I was in advertising, TV, ad agencies, television stations. So I'm used to a lot of restaurants. And the other part of that is what you do in TV and advertising is try and get the crowd in and everything. Getting the crowd is tough here.
Yeah.
I take my grandsons to both restaurants, and they used to have a little game in the one downstairs they could do. But they seem to like it, but getting the amount of people to come into here is difficult. I mean, I'm not complaining about it.
No, I think you've both,
Yeah.
your comments, you confirmed what we've been hearing from our
Right.
ownership for 5 years. Well, the original survey, back when the folks, when we didn't have a restaurant, the number one amenity that owners wanted to see on this
Right.
property was a
Right.
restaurant. Now, you look at this combined group here, we all know almost nothing about running a restaurant. Yeah, we begged
Well,
for
believe me,
for relief.
we
We
know
didn't.
too much.
That was not take
Yeah.
this away from us.
Yeah.
That was not a burden we wanted to take on, but clearly that's what the ownership wanted.
Yeah.
To the extent of subsidizing
You know,
a
even
restaurant,
on,
just so
even
you
on
have
your
it here on
webpage
property.
or what have you, when you look at your webpage, you really don't talk much about the restaurants. You know, it's kind of an afterthought.
Yep.
Okay?
Okay.
But if you really want a great restaurant to stay, we have to support them in certain ways, like the menus in the room, you know, that type of thing. That report on Monday morning, letting the restaurant owners know. Now, the Mine Shaft is run by who? Glacier Club.
Yeah, and they used to run a restaurant here, and they closed it down. So
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
But we would still know how many people, how many guests are going to be here that week, right?
sure,
So
Sarah,
you could even make that information to
Well, and I think that's especially important. I mean,
Right.
right, we're getting into the shoulder season, right? So asking Sarah to put a bunch of resources up here when we don't have a lot of people here,
Mhm.
we understand that, she's gonna lose money.
Yeah.
But when we start getting close to the holidays and start looking at the ski
Right.
season and looking at spring
Right.
break and looking at, next summer and that kind of
Yeah.
thing, I think that's where it becomes important because
Yeah.
it's frustrating sitting here on a Tuesday and having to go into town just because.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And especially,
Right.
over the holidays, when you get
Yeah.
a bunch of people.
Well, Gary made his efforts,
Mm-hmm.
a football, thing, and everybody came for that. The golf tournament. So, we got some people then. But,
well, it's got to be a mutual effort, and we could probably talk all day about a restaurant. I don't mean to cut it off,
No.
but
Matter of fact,
but
I would like to.
we
move
would
on.
love we would love to have more of your
I'm getting
feedback.
hungry now.
Yeah.
And
Serves a good breakfast.
for the record, we're just the board.
Yeah.
We welcome input and help.
Yeah, okay,
And
good.
especially
Yeah.
if you have
Yeah.
experience,
Hey.
because
Well,
So I'll definitely have your name in
Yeah.
there.
You don't know, but you just volunteered.
well, you know what? And we would be
We were
happy
told
to
not
help.
to mention that.
Yeah. And we would be happy to have input, and most of the input, I mean, I believe in being positive and not negative, okay? But the input, it can be a really good thing for us. Can I go to the next thing?
Sure, you got
Okay. Why do we, in the, we're up at High Point and you got the area there where you wash clothes and all that stuff. And everybody, whether they be a guest or what have you, if they don't have the washer or dryer in the unit, they are constantly coming down to the lodge and having to get change. My question is, why were the machines not set up for credit cards?
yeah, I think it was more expensive. I mean, they're not that old. We put them in those are newer ones. From the
4 or 5 years.
old-
4 or 5
Yeah.
years.
Yeah, basically they come at no cost to the association.
Right.
So
And that's how it should
that
be.
was the way it should be,
Right.
and that was the basis on which we had a
Right.
competitive bid process, and that was the most attractive to the association.
Okay. So all the
We weren't interested in
Okay,
subsidizing
so all
people
the
that wanted.
money, all the money that goes in those machines go to the owner of the machine, but they put them.
Not all of it, but some of it, yes.
Okay, some of it. So you guys decided that the credit card thing was not something that was attractive enough to, ask the gals at the front sales if they're starting giving out quarters.
Yeah. Well,
The credit card, you'd have to have either an online access or a phone
Right.
access or something. I
Right.
don't know if
Well,
we've even discussed.
And the other challenge, frankly, is at that point in time and at different times, we've had a influx of people who don't reside here and don't rent here who
Right.
come to use our washers and dryers. We don't really encourage that. In fact, we
Okay.
want to discourage that. So we're not making it easy for them.
Every now
Why should we?
and then, I have grandchildren here, so I'm taking them to school here and there. So also, for the meters in town, I go in the bank, get 10 rolls of quarters.
Yeah.
I'm with
throw
you.
some in the car.
Go look at my
some
dresser. You'll see a
upstairs.
stack of
Yeah.
quarters on my dresser. It's just an accommodate, although we do have a
Yes.
washer and dryer.
Okay,
Okay,
so it sounds like you guys have thought it through then.
well,
You know.
we're not at a point where a contract allows us to pick a different vendor. Let's say that as a simple contractual matter.
Okay.
Maybe when that contract expires, we can look at a different option. Comments, Gary, from
Well, it's
the,
funny because if you look at the directions, it does have directions on how
Credit
to use your
card.
credit card. And then
Yeah.
you can't. And I know we had his daughter with us,
Oh,
And-
God.
so they have kids, and so, she wants to do laundry. And she's like, well, where do I get quarters at? Like, either you need to have a Coke machine that can dispense change. I don't know, it would have been a lot easier. And she said, this was her comment was, I would have given this resort a 5-star until I had to do the laundry. And I'm thinking, how many people do laundry and they're only here 3 or 4 days?
Yeah.
But I can understand with the family that becomes a little bit of an issue.
Yeah, and Joe just clarified, we don't even have phone lines going into those.
Yeah.
Those buildings.
No.
So,
I just don't get my clothes dirty.
that's the right way to do it.
Right?
We do kind of need to keep moving, Gary. Let's give the folks in the remote areas a little bit of time.
There are just a couple of comments from one owner about the restaurant, suggestions for having a general store either as part of the restaurant, or I know we used to have a general store.
Yes, we did.
Lifetimes ago.
Oh, yeah,
James
that's
Coffee
right.
Smoothie Bars with the restaurant, and a percent of the sales toward capital projects like new elevator. We're having a hard enough time getting sales, period, let alone taking a percentage of the sales.
Yeah.
Okay.
And by the way, I want to reiterate one thing I think Eric said. In the summertime, we get people who are camping up at Haviland Lake. They
to
come
wash
here
clothes.
to the outlying areas, and they will do their laundry in the
Yeah.
outlying areas.
Yeah.
That's one of the problems.
Well, it's just been thought through. I mean,
Well,
I think
it's
your
not a-
explanation was good. I mean, it's not there to accommodate, like Gary was saying,
Oh,
so.
we never thought that would be a problem.
Oh, people
But I don't know why.
People bring the worst things you can think of,
Oh.
dog beds and other things, and run them through our washers. And then the washers don't last. And then we can't find a vendor to provide that service. And
That's like a Walmart. And we need it.
and I'm a dog lover. I mean, don't take it that way. But
Yeah.
okay, Gary.
That's it.
Okay, how are we doing on time? We about quarter till?
20 minutes.
Okay.
22.
Any other questions? Then we got 5 or so minutes for more questions. But Gary, can you show us real quickly the web page? www.tamarahoa.
In the next meeting, are you guys going to have an open forum that people can speak up and also,
Well,
Every meeting.
sure. Yeah, there will.
because if I keep going,
Go
we're going to be
ahead.
here.
We're not going to talk about restaurant anymore.
Okay.
No, we will. Well, there's an agenda over there on the table, but the morning session. The first thing we'll go through is about 5 or 6 action items where the board will take some kind of an action. As John said, there will be a board discussion, and if we do get to a motion in a second, then there will be an opportunity for audience contribution, and then we'll take a vote. In the afternoon, we'll have an executive session, and then in the afternoon we'll have reports. And again, all of those will be open. There'll be a presentation, then there will be a chance for a board discussion. And after the board's discussion, if there are questions from the audience, we will try and address those. I mean, sometimes these things can go on until 8 o'clock, 6 o'clock at night. We're not going to do that. We'll try and put a limit on the discussion. We'll give everybody, 3 minutes to make their statements.
For me?
Well, sorry, focus.
Give me a couple of quarters, I'll give you that.
All right.
And go eat.
Okay.
What did you want to see? Just
Just-
the website in general?
Just the kind of the skeleton of the.
Our website is TamaronHOA.com. The homepage has links to all the other pages, a little blurb about Tamaron, and we also have a map here. If you go to the Board of Directors page, there used to be talk about having photos of the different board members on here. That has not come to fruition yet. But you can read a little bit about each of the board members. The news and events page, I try to keep,
Isn't it the bottom of that, email addresses and phone
no,
numbers?
not yet.
Okay, sorry.
Not yet.
Yep.
News and events page, I try to keep this updated as much as possible. It isn't always as much as I would like, but the schedule of meetings is always on there. The update on the pool and spa is there. A few other things. I never did get last night's trivia night up there, but there's a variety of other stuff. If you ever want to see who wins the Taco Owners Golf Tournament, scroll down to the bottom of this page. We do have a page with an update on the 416 fire. That's going to be taken down probably after the owners meeting at some point.
Does that yellow carrot link go to does it go to a menu, Gary?
Eric.
Does that yellow carrot link go to a
It goes to a whole page.
goes to the webpage?
Yeah.
Eric asked about phone numbers and email addresses for board members. It's on the contact.
It's on the contact. Yeah, I'll get to that. The Tamron link has unit drawings, maps, things like that, and a little bit of information about the all the areas. The HOA documents page, which was alluded to earlier. All of the governing documents, all of our rules and regs, everything is on here. And again, we try to keep this updated as much as possible. Every once in a while, I get reminded that a particular form or something is not current. But as Eric said, these are, or John said, or somebody said, these are boring as all hell to read through, but some of these are going to be necessary to know about.
No, my wife Betty loves his stuff.
Good.
I'm serious, you know.
The amenities
Insomniac?
link just talks about the pool and spa, the yellow carrot, bushwhacker hairdressing. Get in touch with Linda Logan if you need to have your hair done. The committees, the different committees. This is one page that needs to be updated some more because there are some there's some information here that needs to be changed around. The owner listing page, if you scroll down to the bottom of this, click here to view the directory. Joe sets up, there's a password for the directory. Joe sets that up, he sends it to me, and I send it out to everybody. It is the same, somebody mentioned to me last night that it's different, but it's the same as it has been for a while. So I got to find out what the problem is there. Contact Us page has all of the important people, the addresses of the association, property addresses, board of directors, phone numbers, and email addresses are all down here. People like myself, Dave Dunn, Mark Schmidt, other people are listed here, and then frequently called phone numbers. There's a page for the yellow carrot, and that has a menu on it, and it has her hours, although I'm not sure that her hours are updated on here, so I've got to change that. There's a page for Glacier Club that explains our relationship with Glacier Club, some information about their organization, as well as the water quality report for each year that gets posted on this page. And there's a link for an update on the fitness center. And then the one that I try to direct people to the most, because this is where I get the most questions, is the TV, phone, and internet information page. There's a whole lot of stuff on here. There's some links as to a diagram as to how everything is hooked up in the outlying areas. There's a link to, for the TV channels. There's a link. There's 4 links down here to do speed tests, etc. So I encourage people to go to this page and read it and get an idea of what works here and occasionally what doesn't.
Most of it will be out of date.
Yes, hopefully it'll be out of date.
Yeah, we'll update the webpage.
Yeah. So that's it.
All right. Thank you, Gary. Appreciate the update. I think if there are no other online comments or questions, we will take a short break and we'll convene with the board meeting at 10 o'clock Mountain Time.
No other comments.
All right.
For those people who are online, I'm going to end this meeting right now, start it up again in 5 minutes.
How many owners did you have online?
5.
5? So a total of 7 new owners showed up.
And we recorded it. It's some